Let's get it, 580 Sports Talk, coming at you on a Friday. It is a Friday afternoon in the capital city, and we have got Sports Talk to round out your working week on the sports voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online worldwide at 580WIBW.com, and streaming on video. You can watch us on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, and on our Facebook page, WIBW News. Greetings and salutations. Thanks for hanging out with us for the next 2.5 hours or so here for 580 Sports Talk. We're breaking away a little early for some high school basketball tonight. Our 580 Preps game of the week from Ken Darting Gymnasium, the Pressure Cooker, Scotland, the gym with 1,000 names out of Highland Park High School, as the Scots and Lady Scots host Sumner Academy out of Kansas City in Meadowlark Conference action for tonight's 580 Preps Game of the Week doubleheader. Our pregame coverage getting started at approximately 5:30 tonight. And we have got Sports Talk up until then. I am Dan Lucero. Brendan Dworzinski is with me today. It is just the two of us. Spencer Dupuis is off. He'll be back next week. Lots to get to on today's program, including the start of spring training. It is finally upon us. The Royals are playing a live baseball game. Did somebody say World Series champions? Because the Royals are winning 2-0 in the bottom of the fifth inning over the Rangers.
Who's balling out? Who are we going to overreact to so far?
Nick Lofton. Put him on the team. He has driven in both Royals runs.
Replacing Bobby Witt Jr. at shortstop?
It could be. Bobby Witt Jr. 0 for 2. Bum.
Jonathan India batting 500 with a walk. 667 on base.
Everything they wanted when they got him. Why did they get him? He gets on base. Daniel Lynch, 2 scoreless innings with a couple of punchies.
Whomst is Brian O'Keefe? Fake person, not real.
Brian O'Keefe. Yeah, he got the start at catcher today. 10 major league games with the Mariners. Did not appear in the bigs last year. 0 for 2 today with a strikeout. Not looking good for you in the bigs this year, buddy.
What can you tell me about the pitcher the Royals are currently facing, Gerson Garabito?
Definitely a name that I have heard.
Great name.
Yeah, he pitched a little bit for the Rangers last year, I'm pretty certain.
He did. He had a 4.78 ERA in 18 appearances.
There you go. Yeah, it's we talk about guy remembering. Every spring training game is an exercise in guy remembering, right? Because you go, oh, yeah, that guy.
Gerson Garabito.
Oh, yeah, Jake Berger's on the Rangers now.
Yeah, that's a wild one.
Oh, Tavares is in center field. Every time I see that, I think it's former Astro and Rocky Willie Tavares. It's not. It's Leody Tavares.
Leody Tavares, yeah.
Royals giving their starters a lot of run in this game. They just batted, the top of the order did, for the third time in the bottom of the fifth. Unfortunately, Witt and Pasquantino came up empty with 2 on and 2 out. And so the Royals lead remains 2-0. Gerson Garabito for Cy Young? The people are asking.
He'll finish fourth behind a 3-way tie between Daniel Lynch, Angel Zerpa, and Noah Cameron.
Noah Cameron is a name to know. I will say this. Noah Cameron's the pride of St. Joe, Central Arkansas. This is a name to know. This is a guy who I would not be surprised if he pitches at some point for the Royals this season. Had a really nice year, 9 really outstanding starts at AAA. Left-hander with a fastball, gets into the mid-90s. Yeah, file that name away, folks. If you do not already have it filed away, file away the name Noah Cameron for later.
Loved his work on Avatar.
That would be, that's his father, James, actually.
Wouldn't that be wild?
It sure would. Anyhow.
One of the most famous filmmakers in the world, and he decided to live in St. Joseph, Missouri. Okay.
Very inspiring.
I'm not famous, and I don't generally like to spend more than about 4 hours in St. Joe.
I lived in St. Joe, and I was inspired by what was around me to make something actually beautiful to look at, and that's how Avatar got made.
I drove through St. Joseph, Missouri, took one whiff, and created a movie called The Abyss.
All right. The starters now have all been pulled. It's a brand new 9 for the Royals as the 6th inning begins in surprise.
2015 Kentucky.
Hey,
line change.
Jack Caglione in the ball game at first base.
Oh,
looks like Tyler Gentry, Joey Weimer in the ball game. The former top prospect whose brother went to KU, Jordan Grosjeans.
yeah.
He was a big deal prospect once upon a time, and he got above AA. He couldn't hit. So it goes.
That was Jordan. I always confused which one went to KU and which one was the good prospect.
Jax went to KU.
Jax went to KU. Jordan was the good prospect. He was in a fairly big trade at one point.
Yeah, he was. And I'm trying to remember which one it was.
I remember that. It was a big deal.
Yeah, the Blue Jays traded the Marlins for a couple of relievers.
Oh, maybe
back when he was
a big deal.
When he was a big deal prospect. It was kind of surprising that like the Marlins bought a prospect, kind of.
Yeah.
And they ended up with the Yankees, got traded to the A's last year and signed as a minor league free agent. Don't file away the name Jordan Grosjeans. You're not going to need to know it. I tell you that right now. Old friend Taylor Clark now pitching for the Royals.
Sure.
Yeah, Taylor Clark.
Jax, by the way, is currently in the American Association.
Oh.
He's playing for the Cleburne Railroaders.
Okay. Not the Milwaukee Milkmen.
No, I wish.
The Chicago Dogs.
Do you know who manages this team?
The Cleveland Railroaders?
Yeah.
Yeah, tell me.
You'll love it. Pete Incaviglia.
Yeah, Pete Incaviglia, yeah.
Caviglia,
yeah, Pete Incaviglia, yeah. Yeah, put a little more Italian on that name. Pete Incaviglia, yeah. Inky.
You'll never believe it. I have a hard time putting Italian on a lot of names, given my heritage.
No, I totally understand it. We're giving, like, almost play-by-play of the Royals game. We might have had to do that for real. There was a technical glitch on the MLB At-Bat app earlier today, and instead of the Royals broadcast coming out over the feed, it was the live feed of radio station 580 WIBW in Topeka, Kansas. So people who want to listen to baseball were hearing a little agri-talk with Chip Flory, and we were about 30 minutes out of broadcast time thinking, are people going to hear us on the MLB app today? Shortly after that, though, they flipped the switch.
Now, that would have been a time to unleash my agenda.
Yes. Yeah. With a large audience, a broad audience might have been unwittingly exposed to our stylings here on 580 Sports Talk. We are going to talk a little baseball here on the program today. We're also going to get into some Chiefs, kind of branching out a discussion we had with the Chiefs yesterday regarding how they should address their needs this offseason. If free agency or the draft is going to be the best path forward for addressing the needs that they do have. We'll also talk Chiefs with our Chiefs insider, Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com. He's going to join us at the bottom of this 3 o'clock hour here. We'll talk to Matt and get his thoughts on all things from the Chiefs Kingdom. Also, bombshell story out of the Tulsa World today suggesting that Bill Self very nearly took the Oklahoma State coaching job this past offseason, an assertion that was refuted by one Bill Self, a source who would know on the topic at his media availability earlier today. But it is fascinating, not just the story, but also Self's refutation of the story. There's also some interesting stuff. Bill had a lot of interesting stuff to say at his media availability today. Very candid, as usual, from the head coach of the Jayhawks. So we'll get into that a little bit later on in the show. Plus, our 580 Sports Talk headlines. We'll crown a weekly champion on What Is Wrong With You. We'll play Change My Mind and On Second Thought as well. And your interactions with the program today. We'd love to hear from you if you're watching the YouTube stream on 580 Sports Talk. In the live chat, there is a chat feature on the web browser or mobile device. If you're watching on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, jump on in, interact with us, and interact with your fellow listeners. Good afternoon to Barbara and Mark H. and Ryan and everybody else who's watching or who will come to watch on the YouTube stream today. Also, you can text the program if you'd like. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. Shoot us a text, 785-272-9429. The Royals are playing their first spring training game. For the record, their first lineup of the spring. I kind of thought we'd get something that looked like the opening day lineup, but then I remembered that the Royals starting catcher is in his mid-30s, and they're not going to run him out there on the first day of spring training if he's not feeling it, basically. So we didn't quite get that, but top three, pretty true to life. I would expect you would see this quite a bit. in the coming 2025 season, with Jonathan India leading off in left field, Bobby Witt Jr. at short, Vinny Pasquantino at first. Hunter Renfroe got the DH at bats and hit cleanup today. Michael Massey batted fifth at second base. Nelson Velasquez got the start in right field. Kyle Isbell in center. Nick Lofton, who I mentioned earlier, has both of the Royals' RBI today with a RBI single in the second inning of what is currently a 2-0 Royals lead.
RSBI, excuse me.
RSBI?
RSBI.
Man, look, I already do RBI instead of RBIs.
That's better.
Yes. Run batted in, runs batted in. It's like attorneys general. Like,
yeah. Whoppers Jr.
Yeah, it's got its own rule. Whoppers Jr. Nick Lofton was
3:16 Friday afternoon.
It's a Friday.
A long way to go, folks.
It's a Friday. The aforementioned Brian O'Keefe was doing the catching today, and Daniel Lynch got the first crack at auditioning for the number 5 starters role for the Royals and came through it well. 2 shutout innings, worked around a couple of hits, had a couple of strikeouts, no walks in his 2 innings of work. Noah Cameron followed that with 2 shutout innings, allowing 1 hit with 1 strikeout. Angel Zerpa, a clean 5th. Taylor Clark has just worked through a scoreless 5th, working around a 1-out single. So the Royals remain ahead 2-0 as we go to the bottom of the 6th.
I'd go as far as to say 1 through 3 in the lineup and 5 are pretty much true to life. If I'm building the lineup for opening day right now with what I expect the 26 man to look like, I think Michael Massey's my 5 hitter. And that's more so because I don't think there's a better option. Not necessarily that I think Michael Massey is exactly who you want anchoring the middle of your order. But that being said, he's a productive player. He's got a little bit of pop to his bat. I think he probably has the upper hand on that 5th spot. India, Witt, Vinny, Salvi, Massey. I think that's going to be your top half of the order.
I could see them hitting Renfroe 5th and Massey 6th.
Sure.
You know, you may be looking for a little bit more contact in that 5 spot if you're in a spot where you've got 2 on, 2 out. Like if you build an inning, you know, you get a couple guys on, couple outs, your 5-hole hitter comes up with a couple guys on. You want contact, maybe a little less swing and miss. And Massey certainly has some swing and miss in his game, but Renfroe, I think, has a little more. So you can make the argument for Massey 5. I think that's a good argument to make, and we'll certainly see how the Royals game it out as we go along in Cactus League play. I got to thinking, since the start of the Cactus League mostly ends the offseason, there aren't any big-ticket free agents still sitting out there. In past springs, we've had that, right? Like, we've gotten into spring training games, and like last year, Blake Snell was still a free agent until like the final week of spring training. A couple of years ago, it was Cody Bellinger who was still sitting out there. That's been more and more common these last few years as players who are looking for more money or longer-term deals don't get what they're looking for to wait a couple of weeks into spring training. But there just aren't really a whole lot of impact guys still left on the market. So for most teams, the offseason is done. And I think you can even more cleanly say that about the American League Central, because you're not talking about teams that are going to go dig in the couch cushions and like give JD Martinez $12 million for one season. Like, that's probably not going to be a move that anybody in the AL Central is making, particularly the Guardians and the Twins, who have tacked hard towards austerity in the last 2 off seasons. So I was thinking about how everybody else operated in the AL Central with respect to who they lost and who they brought back. And in the course of this conversation, we will not be discussing the Chicago White Sox because they are not worthy of discussion here.
I would like to make an amendment here. I know this is not what you meant by respect. You just meant in terms of, you know, getting all sorts of things covered. I do not think the word respect should be used, however, in any regard regarding the offseason in the American League Central, except for one team, which is going to preemptively answer the point you wanted to make about how the Royals offseason stacks up against the rest of the division. I will go as far as to say the Royals are the only team that deserve respect, and everybody else in the division deserves straight up ridicule for their off seasons, except the Tigers. You know what? I take that back. The Tigers do. I don't really know if they're going to be good, but they're trying to be good. And you know what? I respect it. The Twins and Guardians and the White Sox as well should be ridiculed around Major League Baseball for the way they have handled this offseason.
The White Sox, they got a whole summer of ridicule coming. They're going to win like 50-odd games. But
who's their manager again? Didn't you just tell me this the other day?
Will Venable. Yeah, I did tell you. Yeah, Will Venable, former Padre.
Sure. Good luck.
Yeah, that's what I would say. I don't know. You must really want a managing job. I mean, there's
only 30 of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Although the funny thing is, there's over 100 minor league teams. Like, you could go be the greatest AAA manager ever.
Go manage.
I'm sure the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp are hiring.
Go manage the Milwaukee Milkmen.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly. The Royals in their offseason, when you look at the roster they ended last year with, their only losses from that roster, Tommy Pham, Yuli Gurriel, and Robbie Grossman, all to free agency. Gurriel, I think, just signed a minor league deal with somebody. Grossman might be done. Pham's with the Pirates. And obviously, they made the Brady Singer trade. So those are the 4 guys. And of those 4, 3 of them were emergency September additions to try and bolster a banged-up and slumping lineup. So, how much do you miss guys that were only around a month? In additions, the Royals obviously brought in Jonathan India and Joey Weimer in the Brady Singer trade. They also signed Carlos Estevez to add to the bullpen. That's what the Royals did this offseason. The Guardians this offseason traded Andres Jimenez and Josh Naylor for players who are not going to impact the 26-man roster, at least initially for the Guardians. Maybe Slade Ciccone, the pitcher, a real name, a pitcher the Guardians got from Arizona for Naylor. Maybe he makes the roster at some point, but they gave Jimenez and Naylor away for nothing. Also traded away bullpen stalwart Eli Morgan, and they lost 3 of their starting pitchers, Matthew Boyd, Alex Cobb, and Carlos Carrasco, to free agency. They added Carlos Santana, traded for Luis Ortiz from the Pirates, a young arm with some intrigue, and signed Paul Sewald, who's been an all-star in the back of the bullpen, but wasn't very good for Arizona last year. He's hoping for a bounce back in Cleveland. Also lost Scott Barlow as well, but he had fallen out of favor. In fact, they may have DFA'd him before the end of last season, too. The Tigers didn't really lose anybody from their roster last year. They had a bunch of young guys and were able to retain their young core that got crazy hot in August and September and came 1 game away from reaching the championship series. They added Gleyber Torres, the erstwhile Yankee, to play second base. They brought Jack Flaherty back. They had him at the beginning of last year, traded him to the Dodgers, then re-signed him in free agency. Also added to their bullpen with Tommy Kahnle and John Brebbia, both of whom are steady veterans. The Twins, this is year number 2 of the Twins just doing nothing in the offseason. The Twins lost the aforementioned Carlos Santana, who went back to Cleveland. Max Kepler left in free agency. Alex Kirilloff retired. Caleb Thielbar, veteran reliever. Kyle Farmer, one of their utility guys, also off to different pastures. The Twins signed this offseason, the sum total of their additions, Danny Colombe is just a guy, a journeyman middle reliever. Ty France, whose best days are behind him, former Mariner. Royal killer, Ty France.
More like Ty Algeria.
Okay. And Harrison Bader. Harrison Bader is a Twin now. So he essentially replaces Manuel Margot, who actually signed with the Brewers today. He'll be kind of a platoon guy in center field and also get all the at-bats that Byron Buxton misses out on when he gets hurt, as he inevitably does.
Man, he will get hurt because he always gets hurt. He's so good.
Yeah, what a talented player. It's such a bummer that he's never been able to be healthy. But, yeah, wonderfully talented player. When you look big picture at how little activity there was in the American League Central, it honestly makes me more upset that the Royals didn't do more. It honestly makes me more upset that the Royals didn't try harder and didn't succeed in bringing in the extra bat, the one more bat that this lineup is just dying for. And when I say they didn't succeed, I should stress that because it does seem like the Royals tried. Like, now, the flip side of that coin is, yeah, teams want you to know when teams are out there saying, hey, we tried, how hard did you really try? You want your fans to know that you tried. That's what you're getting at. But at the same time, they made an offer to Anthony Santander. Ken Rosenthal reported today that the Royals and the Tigers were 2 teams that called the Cardinals with interest in trading for their Gold Glove third baseman, Nolan Arenado. Arenado wasn't interested in going somewhere where he can't win a ring easy because Nolan Arenado wants to do things the easy way. And interesting.
Go ahead. You've been waiting all day to share this thought.
No, I just find it fascinating that a guy who is so motivated to be a great player is not motivated to carry a franchise, like to be like the man. He wants to go somewhere where winning is easy, where all the other people do the hard work of winning the games, and he gets to bask in that. I don't understand. He's an older player. He's a declining player. He would help the Royals. I'm glad the Royals made the phone call. Honest to God, that makes me feel really good that J.J. Piccolo made that phone call and that they at least got far enough along in the conversation for John Mozeliak, the Cardinals GM, to tell Nolan Arenado, hey, the Royals are interested. Would you go to Kansas City? And Nolan Arenado said, no, they're not close enough to winning, whatever that means.
But you know the crazy thing about that? One, I would feel much better having a discussion about is Renfroe or Massey going to hit 6 or 7 with Arenado hitting 5th. I mean, he'll have to have a bounce back because he was not very good for a large portion of last year.
If he doesn't bounce back, he's a 25 homer guy with the Gold Glove caliber defense.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. So you're going to stay in St. Louis, but you could have gone to Kansas City and been on a really good team. The funny thing about it, Dan, is he elite glove, even still, as he's getting up there in player age. Nolan Arenado would be the, including pitchers, the 3rd best player on the team?
I don't know that I'd go that far, but he'd be a top 5 player on the team for sure.
Yeah, my point, he's not the best pitcher on the team. He's not a pitcher anyway, but Cole Reagans is an ace. You've got a legit ace who's going to bear a lot of the attention and pressure. You've got the best shortstop in baseball right now in Bobby Witt Jr. playing next to you. It'd be the best left side of the infield in all of Major League Baseball by far.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you've got to go in and you suddenly have to shoulder this gigantic load. You've got a legit, really good chance to win the division. You don't have to be the guy. And you've got a pitching staff that's more than good enough to put you in position to make a run in the playoffs. The Royals feel if you're trying to ring chase here and you don't want to be the guy who shoulders the whole load, that feels like the exact kind of team you would want to go to, especially a team that's got a good clubhouse and a manager that guys respond to. I don't understand this at all, to be completely frank with you.
Yeah, it really surprised me to hear that. I mean, and the Tigers are a team that, they made the playoffs last year. They're a team trending in the right direction, and that Arenado could have helped. And he turned down a trade to Detroit, invoked his no-trade clause there as well. But anyway, back to my broader point. Not only does it feel like the Royals did a lot more to address their needs than the Guardians or the Twins or even the Tigers did, but it makes you wish they had taken that extra step because the Central is there for the taking. I would be solidly convinced that the Royals were the clear favorite in the Central if they had one more bat. Solidly convinced. I may yet talk my way into it by opening day, but I would be dead solid convinced, take it to the bank, bet your firstborn on it, serious about the Royals winning the Central if they'd added that one more bat. And it just looking at how the rest of the AL Central spent the offseason just solidifies that even more for me, that the Royals are on the doorstep and they just didn't walk through it enough. And maybe they will by June or July. Maybe they'll make a move for a bat, or again, maybe my MJ Melendez ship will finally come in and he'll be that bat. By May, he's hitting 5th and he's, starting to realize his potential that we saw in the minor leagues. But right now it feels like a little bit of a missed opportunity for the Royals. We'll take a quick time out here on 580 Sports Talk. When we come back, the biggest baseball news of the day. Then we'll talk some football. Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest will join us. It's all still to come on this Friday edition. We're just getting started on 580 Sports Talk. 3:33 on 580 Sports Talk. Dan and Brendan hanging out with you. Matt Derrick going to join us here in just a little bit. From the YouTube live chat, we welcome our chatters over on YouTube, the channel 580 Sports Talk. Ryan asked, does anybody buy these rumors that baseball is seriously considering a salary cap? Ryan, they are not rumors. The owners want a salary cap, which means Rob Manfred, their boss, or their commissioner, the owners are his boss, he wants a salary cap. And the players union doesn't want a salary cap, and that's why you better find something else to do in the summer of 2027 because you ain't going to be watching baseball.
I said this the other day. I understand why there's a desire for it because you look at the NFL and you say, well, in the NFL, you can turn things around quickly. And everybody is, in theory, it's not perfect, but in theory, everyone is on a level playing field because you have to spend X amount and you can't spend above Y amount. So everybody is in that same kind of window. There's more of a fairness to it. Whereas you look at Major League Baseball and, I mean, let's just be blunt. It's not fair the way some teams spend versus others. Now, how much of that is the actual like real life situation versus artificial barriers these teams place on themselves? That's up to be discussed. So I can understand that. But by the same token, the reason the owners want it is because they say, well, we could pay, $400 million for this superstar player, or we can put a cap in place and then we would essentially not be able to pay him more than $200 million, or we pay him the $400 and no one else gets any money. Interesting. We don't have to spend that much to win anymore. Like it's cost reduction. The owners just don't want to spend that much money. They secretly resent the Dodgers and they resent Steve Cohen, the owner of the Mets, for spending a bunch of money because they think it makes them look bad. They would like to be able to have a competitive balance, and that they think the salary cap is the way to do it, even though salary caps are anti-labor. Major League Baseball Players Association has always been one of the strongest unions, not just in professional sports, but in like the world of unions. And it's why we didn't have a World Series in 1994, and it's why there will absolutely be a lockout in 2027. I think that belief, because I mean that's been the standard for a long time. Like the best players union is Major League Baseball,
yes,
since Marvin Miller and everything.
By far.
I think they got waxed last time in the last CBA. I think they gave up a lot to ownership. And certainly during the COVID problem, I think the ownership took them to the cleaners. So for baseball, like for the strength of their organization, I kind of think they will want to take it to a lockout. So like, hey, we're willing to do this. You don't want to pay us? Okay, well, you're not getting paid, period.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little worried about it, about the strength of that group. Well, I mean, not me, it ain't my money, but I think they should be a little bit more concerned because I think they've got a leadership problem among the MLBPA. I really do.
Ryan asked this, so they'll lock the players out for a year. It worked for the NHL. Did it? Did it work for the NHL? Like maybe it worked for the owners because they got their salary cap, but did it work for the league? I can tell you this, anecdotally speaking, I was crazy about hockey as a young person and a teenager. I have never watched as much hockey since they took away an entire season. And that's not like, oh, I hate hockey, I'm boycotting or whatever. But no, you go away for a whole season, you disappear, you're out of sight, out of mind. And it takes a generation at least to get back. It took baseball the home run chase to get people back in the stands after the strike in 94.
I do think the problem you run
Strikes
into
lockouts are bad, man.
And that lockout was 21 years ago now for the NHL. It was 2004, correct?
Yeah, 2004.
Every single sports league, pro and collegiate, is nearing something of a crisis point in terms of viewership. Like, the ratings are great. Yeah, go look at who is watching, though. It ain't anybody younger than me, generally speaking.
It's all older
They
folks.
are all having a hard time with that. If you suddenly give a younger population a reason not to be involved, they're already getting involved in, esports or, running hedge funds or whatever. Like they're running the government. Like they're already doing other stuff. If you say, hey, for a whole summer, like no baseball to watch, sorry, go do something else, they will not come back. That's a bigger problem now than I think it even was 21 years ago.
Cameron asked, is the only reason the MLBPA is so strong because they don't have a salary cap? This isn't chicken and egg. It's the other way around here. The MLBPA is so strong, and that is why they don't have a salary cap. They have resisted it at every turn. It's the reason they are still the only non-capped league. Anyway, we got to get to a break. The big baseball news of the day, by the way, is that Yankees players can have beards now. reversing a long-held policy.
I hate that team.
Too late for Johnny Damon.
Devin Williams just got there like a week ago and had to shave.
He's probably pissed off. Matt Derrick joins us next. ChiefsDigest.com on 580 Sports Talk. We go to Kansas City to our Chiefs insider, Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. That's where you can read his work. You can find him across social media at Matt Derrick. You can catch him on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline on our program every Friday at this time. Matt, you were watching the hockey last night. You enjoy the hockey?
Absolutely. First of all, anytime that there's a trophy, a medal, anything on the line, that's like the best sports event that there is. So 7th game of a Stanley Cup, playoff, anything like that, it's great. So I thought it was fantastic, and that was amazing for NHL.
Because Canada won and we're the 11th province now, what is your favorite Canadian thing?
Oh, my favorite Canadian thing?
Yes, just favorite thing from Canada.
Healthcare?
Good answer. Good answer. That one's on the Family Feud board.
I was going to say, probably the first thing I think of.
Show me Rush.
Wouldn't have to worry about that.
Yeah, I was going to go with Rush or Bacon, personally, Matt.
Yeah. John Candy.
After that, exactly. After that, you go comedian. So it's definitely all of the Canadian actors. And I mean, Paul Schaefer's a legend.
Yeah.
Show me Dan Aykroyd.
There you go. A lot of great comedians from the Great White North. Let's talk some Chiefs, Matt. We were talking yesterday on the show about the free agent left tackle class. And it's not a particularly deep class. There are a lot of players who have either played well in the past, but their best football is probably behind them, or they've got major injury issues in their past, like a Ronnie Stanley. Do you think that the Chiefs are likelier to look in the free agent direction for their left tackle of the near future, or do you think they might be able to address that need in the draft?
I mean, I tell you what, I mean, it's starting to look kind of negative in all areas because you ask a lot of people about the draft and you get the general answer that's usually the case, which is that if you're looking for a tackle in the top 15, top 20 of the first round, you'll probably be able to find what you need and want. If after that, it's a crapshoot. And even then, it may not be very deep at the top this year. So if there's a rush on left tackles, it may be even earlier. So it's not necessarily a great class from what I'm hearing from people. And the free agent class, like you said, I mean, you've got a couple of guys at the top that have some questions, like Cam Robinson and Ronnie Stanley. Even guys go further down. I know a lot of Chiefs fans I'm hearing from right now are jumping on the Alaric Jackson bandwagon. Well, he's got one good year under him. I mean, otherwise, that's an unproven commodity to a large degree. So is he a fact, part of the system in Los Angeles and plays really well in that system? Would he do the same thing somewhere else? You don't know. I mean, this is probably one of the worst years to be looking for a left tackle, whether it's in the draft or free agency, just across the board, because it doesn't seem like there's anybody that everybody's in love with.
The Chiefs, I believe, you correct me if I'm wrong here, Matt, they have 6 draft picks in the 2025 NFL draft. They've got the extra pick from the Snead trade. So they've actually got 7. They've got 7 draft picks. If you had to guess, will they end up with using 7 draft picks, fewer than 7, or more than 7 in the 2025 draft?
Ooh, really good question, because I could definitely see them. It's Brett Veach, so he's not going to go through a draft without making at least a couple of trades, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's some move ups and move downs. So, I tell you what, I think I might say less than 7, because I think that's what it will probably take it a couple of spots to move up. So I could see them using some day 3 picks as currency to move around the board. Especially in the first 3 rounds. Now, how much can you move up in the first round that's really going to benefit you is probably a question. But, you get into the second and the third rounds when you get those 2 third picks. I mean, the Chiefs do have a decent number of picks in the first couple of days of the draft. So I think you would like to be able to move around if you can, have that flexibility. But, I mean, at the same time, I mean, the Chiefs need numbers. I mean, they're at a point now where they're consistently going to go forward, having to build around the draft. They're going to not only have to draft well, but they need to make as many picks as they can. I mean, they can't necessarily have a season where they maybe make a bunch of moves and only take 4 or 5 guys. I mean, they need quantity and quality in the draft.
Matt Derrick joins us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. It's our Chiefs insider on 580 Sports Talk. Make sure you go find all of his great work covering the Kansas City Chiefs at ChiefsDigest.com. It's a really good tight end draft, Matt. It's not a great draft class overall. Folks in the know about these kind of things will tell you running backs, tight ends, defensive line, not a lot of depth or even top end talent in some other spots. So with tight ends being one of the premium groups, whether or not Travis Kelce comes back, do you think the Chiefs will use a pick on a tight end this year?
It's a good question, because they just did last year with Jared Wiley in the 4th round, and that was a guy that they really liked. But, now he's going to be coming back from an injury mid-season. You're not entirely sure about when he's going to be 100%. I think the Chiefs are fairly optimistic that he's going to be ready by the beginning of training camp, but there's no guarantee of that at this point. But even then, I mean, you kind of lost a little bit of development last year. And as we know, I mean, guys coming back from knee injuries, typically it's the second year back when they're stronger. So, the first year back for Jared Wiley might not be as strong as you would hope. So, yeah, I mean, then do you need to look at the draft? Do you need to look at the free agent market? Maybe a bit of both. Wouldn't surprise me. I mean, the Chiefs obviously made their investment with keeping Noah Gray. I mean, I'm fairly confident. I think that Travis Kelce is going to come back for another year, so that takes care of it a little bit. But hey, given the depth of the draft, if there's a quality tight end available when you're on the board, I think you might have to really consider it, because once again, as we've talked about for years, ever since Andy Reid got here, the Andy Reid offense runs through the tight end. He needs a tight end in this offense at all times. So you're not always going to have a Travis Kelce, but you need a tight end, because that's going to be the first option in everything in the West Coast offense.
That's important to note if you're feeling like Travis Kelce is going to come back for at least 1 year. But what is Travis Kelce going to be next year? If we assume that he's on this roster, he's going to play some sort of role. He's not going to be Udonis Haslem on this team and just sit on the bench and do nothing, collecting a paycheck all year, being, the fake assistant coach. No, he's going to play. But if the offense is going to run through a tight end, and Kelce clearly does not have the same athleticism he's had over the course of his career so far, what does his role look like in 2025?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, because I feel like if Travis Kelce goes into 25 with his usual strategy, which is that he wants to be at every practice and he wants to go 100% all day long and play as many snaps as possible, then you're probably looking at just another declining season. I mean, if he plays 90% of the snaps and practices every day, I think you've seen the arc already start to be on the downward slope. So I think you'd probably say fewer receptions, fewer yards next year. Absolutely. But I think that there's a possibility that, Travis Kelce could gain through subtraction. If he just accepts the fact that he's 35 going on 36 next season, that he can play 70% of the snaps, that maybe he doesn't need to go 110% in practice every single day, that maybe he can take some days off in camp. I mean, if he just acknowledges that's where he's at in his life with his body and everything, I think there's still a lot of great football in Travis Kelce, because I think he's still got the athleticism. I mean, he's not the best tight end in the league anymore. Is he among the best? I think he still is. And certainly he's smarter than any other tight end in the league. So I think that, hey, look at the numbers that he put up this year, and maybe not be able to get 97 receptions, but I think he could absolutely even get close to the same number of yards playing fewer snaps, because I think his productivity per catch and his efficiency, his yards per catch, I think all those things would go up just being fresher and healthier.
Quick sidebar, Matt. Dennis Gates, National Coach of the Year?
I mean, how can you not? They didn't win a game last year in the SEC. And this year, I mean, right now, they might end up in Wichita, for maybe be a top 4 seed. So yeah, I'm ecstatic over Dennis Gates right now. I mean, absolutely.
Okay, if your Tigers make it to Wichita, I assume you're going to get yourself some tickets to Interest Bank Arena to go see your beloved Tigers play. If that does happen, you've got to make a pit stop here in Topeka on your way. All right.
All right, that's a deal.
Love it.
Perfect. One more.
Don't bring Tigers gear to the studio, though.
Oh, I'm going to be decked out in Tiger gear on that day.
Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com, our guest on the Floating Place Wine Spirits Hotline. Last one for you, Matt. Kareem Hunt. Did he play his way into another opportunity with a different NFL team, or maybe even a return to the Chiefs in 2025?
I think there's certainly a possibility. I mean, I think he showed that he's still got some football in him. With the Chiefs, I think they would be interested in having him back, but at the same time, I think they know and acknowledge that they probably need to get some more speed in that backfield. And if that means going a different direction, because you're going to have Isaiah Pacheco, you've still got Carson Steele, we'll see if they are interested in bringing back Samaje Perine too. I mean, they do need some youth and explosion, and you alluded to it. This might be a pretty good draft for running back, so maybe they're able to find that in the draft. If they do, that might squeeze out Kareem Hunt, but I think he's definitely still has some football in him. So I think he could definitely help out a team. And even if he just does what he did this year and come in mid-season, I think he, could help out somebody who needs some running back depth due to injuries during a season.
Matt Derrick covers the Kansas City Chiefs at ChiefsDigest.com. You can follow him all across social media at Matt Derrick. He joins us every Friday here on 580 Sports Talk. Matt, it is always a pleasure, even when you're talking about the Missouri Tigers. Thanks so much for your time, and we'll do it again next week.
It's a pleasure whenever you guys are talking about the Missouri Tigers, so I appreciate that.
That's a fact. We're only talking about them when they're really good or really bad. That's usually how that goes. Thanks again, Matt. We appreciate you.
Take care, guys. Have a great weekend.
That is Matt Derrick. We'll step aside for one final timeout before we wrap up this hour of 580 Sports Talk. As we wrap up this 3 o'clock hour, 580 Sports Talk, little change my mind. Change my mind. Tyler Gentry's going to make the team. He just hit a 3-run bomb for the Royals to give them a 5-2 lead in the 8th over the Rangers. That's not actually my change my mind.
I was going to say, I don't think his name came up beyond just being a candidate when we talked about the end of the roster the other day.
Yes, we mentioned his name and then we moved on.
That was it. He never came up again.
He had a fine year at AAA, which is that and, $1 will get you a copy of the newspaper. Now, change my mind. Every other league with an all-star game is going to be chasing the high of the Four Nations face-off.
Yeah, no, you're probably right about that. No, you're wrong about that because there aren't enough international football players.
Okay, I'm wrong from the NFL perspective.
They're going to just keep playing flag football and capture the flag or whatever.
Right.
Like they won't be able to. But I mean, baseball already kind of has it, right? With the World Baseball Classic, which generated a lot of attention this past time they ran it last year.
I'm just saying, for something that was occurring during the downtime of their regular season, over 9 million people watched the championship game of the Four Nations face-off last night between Team USA, Team Canada. Awesome hockey game, by the way. Canada wins it in OT. Connor McDavid, the winning goal. How do you lose him between the face-off dots? That's like not guarding Steph Curry on the three-point line. Like, you're asking for trouble. And that's how Canada won. But over 9 million people watched it. ESPN was wall-to-wall hockey for like the entire day. And hockey's got the lowest barrier to entry of any sport. Like, you usually only need one game to watch and go, oh man, this rocks. This is awesome.
With high stakes for sure, because everything is so close, if that makes sense. Like, oh, just a little bit more and that one goes in. Oh, we almost missed it. Like, it's so fine everywhere.
I think baseball and the NBA are going to chase that dragon a little bit. You got to change my mind real quick?
I was just going to add on NBA. Next All-Star game will be U.S. versus international. Guaranteed.
I think that's absolutely going to happen. Coming up at the 4 o'clock hour, we are going to talk Chiefs. What are they going to do about addressing their holes? Are they going with the draft? Or are they going with free agency? We'll talk about it on 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. 580 Sports Talk, hour number 2 on this Friday afternoon. So glad you're with us on the sports voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online 580WIBW.com. And a special hello to those of you watching on our video stream on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, and on Facebook at WIBW News. I'm Dan Lucero. Brendan Dworzinski is with me. In about a half hour, it'll just be Brendan, because I'll be on my way for tonight's coverage of the 580 Preps Game of the Week. We've got Meadowlark Conference action at the Pressure Cooker. We haven't been there in a long time. You know, we couldn't go last year. The gym flooded. So Highland Park didn't get to hardly play any home games, if any. And so we're excited to be back at Ken Darting Gymnasium at Highland Park for tonight's games between Highland Park and Sumner Academy. Myself and the coach, Larry Latimer, will be on the call tonight for that one. Coverage starting at around 5:30, so we'll have a truncated final hour of 580 Sports Talk today. But once we're ready to rock and roll, Brendan will send it out our way, and we will bring you some high school basketball tonight. And then, of course, the high school basketball scoreboard show coming up 10 o'clock tonight here on the flagship station of the Kansas Information Network, 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. Coming up this hour of the show, Bill Self almost took the Oklahoma State job. That smelled funny when Barry Trammell reported it in the Tulsa World earlier this morning. And look, that is not to impugn the character or the reporting chops or the sources of Barry Trammell. But still, it seemed like maybe something that could have been miscommunicated or lost in communication. And Bill Self himself went to the podium today and, among other things, addressed the idea that he was close to taking the Oklahoma State job this past offseason. And Brendan's going to get to that in the bottom of the hour, talk a little bit about the coming weekend in college basketball. Of course, KU and Oklahoma State play tomorrow at Allen Fieldhouse. K-State waits till Sunday to play. They got Arizona State coming to Bramlage Coliseum, a Sunday afternoon affair. There have been a couple of Sunday games this year. I don't like it. Jerome Tang say he doesn't much care for the Sunday games. I think you much prefer to play on a Saturday. But the one thing that Tang did point out, by playing on Sunday, you get a really good officiating crew. He says, we got a Final Four caliber officiating crew for this game, which is because there are fewer games on Sunday.
Yeah.
So you get, a little more pick of the litter as far as crews go. So,
Sure.
I mean, Jerome Tang looking for the bright side, which when you're the coach of a 13-13 team, you're prone to do. So Brendan's going to break down a little college hoops coming up. And, of course, this hour we will crown a weekly champion on What Is Wrong With You, sponsored by our good buddy Mo, State Farm agent Ryan Mo Winkle. But I want to talk some Chiefs football first. Mark in the YouTube comments asked us, before we went to break, Dan, BD, what do you think the Chiefs are going to do first this offseason? And I guess we can answer that question real quick. The first thing that has to happen this offseason for the Chiefs, like job one, you have to find out if Travis Kelce is coming back. I don't know that a whole lot else. I won't say you can't do anything until you know that answer, but I think knowing that answer is going to inform a lot about what the Chiefs do with the rest of their offseason. And not just in the sense of losing the player or not, it's gaining the cap room or not as well that goes with it.
Well, right, yeah, because I don't think you would gain every dollar that's owed to him technically, because there's ways that retirement works.
It's like $2.5 million dead cap, I think, if he were to retire.
Yeah, it's a pretty workable deal. You do. I agree with you on that. There will probably be, before that is determined, a veteran who we know wasn't going to return is going to get cut because, to be nice to the guys, we can go find a home earlier, or they'll sign futures deals or something, whatever. Something like that will probably happen first in a very literal sense. But yeah, you need to know what's going on with Travis Kelce. You need to have an idea of how you want to use Travis Kelce. That's why I asked Matt Derrick about it at the end of last hour. What is his role going to look like? Because if he says, yeah, I'll come back, I know you want me, but I'm only coming back if I'm going to get my 100 targets again. I don't know about that one, Travis. I don't know that that's necessarily the way we want to use you, because I don't think that's the way to maximize you at this point. It was 2 years ago even. right now, I don't know. I don't know that that's the right way to maximize Travis Kelce at this point. So I think you have to determine, is he coming back? And if he does, what is his role going to look like? And then you can go into, well, what does our draft board look like? What positions are we going to prioritize? If there was a free agent tight end who we could bring in as TE3 behind Noah Gray and Jared Wiley, what does that look like? I think you're right that it all sort of breaks from there. Similarly to how this would have been last season, right? It was Chris Jones.
Yes.
Figure it out. It doesn't
always
matter what it's going to be, but you need to figure that out. Then you can go from there.
There's always the first domino, right? And it changes every offseason. Last year it was Chris Jones was the first domino, and then L'Jarius Sneed was the domino after that, and then everything else kind of followed based on what happened in those instances. I think a lot will follow whatever happens with Travis Kelce. Trevor with a hot take in the YouTube comment says, I want Kelce to retire. I could understand that from two perspectives. One, if it would make you really sad to watch Kelce continue to decline and number 87 in a Chiefs uniform not be able to produce. But number two, also from the perspective of if all he can be is like a 50% of the snap load guy, like if he's getting the same kind of snaps that like DeAndre Hopkins was getting at wide receiver this last year, do you want that around? Is that worth the cap hit that's going to take? I guarantee you that the Chiefs have prepared one way or another for 2025 with him or without him.
This ain't Andrew Luck retiring out of the blue, right? Like this is something the Chiefs have obviously been prepared for a long time. This past season, 97 receptions on 133 targets. It's actually more targets than he got the year prior. That's too many. I will say that. If the goal is we're going to bring back Travis Kelce and act like it's still 2019, okay, I've got some problems with that. Right. If there is a mutual understanding, hey, you're not that guy anymore because your body literally can't handle it because you're about to be a 36-year-old tight end, and there is I'm not saying to throw him like one pass a game or something, right, but bring it back down. He's more of a role player than the focal point. I've got no problem with
75% of the snaps instead of 85, which is where he was at last.
So I guess my perspective is to build off of what Trevor said in the YouTube comments. My opinion, I guess, is more the Chiefs saving themselves from themselves. That, Kelce's out there. We got to throw him the ball. No, you do not. You do not need to design that much for him anymore.
So that's going to be the first domino to answer your question, Mark, from the YouTube comments. We want to hear from you. If you are watching on YouTube, 580 Sports Talk, jump in the live chat. You can also text the program, 785-272-9429. Chiefs, of course, have other needs going into the offseason. Certainly need a left tackle. Looks like they're probably going to need a right guard if they don't retain. Well, they don't retain Trey Smith. They're definitely going to need a right guard. Could use depth at wide receiver. Always could use depth along the defensive line. Depth at cornerback was an issue last season. That's something that they could certainly address. Lots of needs, ways to fill them moving forward. Which one makes the most sense, the draft or free agency? And we'll start at left tackle because we discussed this at length yesterday, Brendan, while you were not on the show, while you were out at Lee Arena doing Washburn basketball. 2 wins for the Bodge yesterday, by the way. Breaking news. Those scores just in.
A lot of fun.
Yes, Washburn sweeping Central Oklahoma.
Yeah, our ticker a little behind.
Yeah, ticker's a little slow, but those scores just in. Anyhow, we talked about left tackle, and I went as far as to say I threw out the 5 big names on the free agent block at left tackle. Mm-hmm. Big, relatively speaking.
Right.
Cam Robinson, Tyron Smith, Ronnie Stanley, DJ Humphries, Alaric Jackson. And I said, I think one of those 5 guys is going to be the left tackle for the Chiefs week 1.
I don't hate that idea. I'm going to alter it, though. I'm only calling one of those guys. I would be fine if Alaric Jackson is the Chiefs starting left tackle. I know Matt last hour was a little hesitant because he's only had one really good year. He did have the conduct suspension for the first 2 games of this past season. I don't think Alaric Jackson's a first-team All-Pro. I do think he is better than anything else the Chiefs threw out there this year, including Joe Thuney as an out-of-position left tackle.
It would feel similar to the Jawan Taylor deal, where you grab a young player just hitting free agency and you say, hey, 4-year deal, you're going to be the cornerstone of that side of the offensive line.
And I know he's a left tackle, and that always comes with a steady price tag. But that being said, I don't think cap changes, the time value of money, all that. I don't think that would be a complete back-breaking kind of contract to hand out. I think Alaric Jackson is a fine left tackle. I think he's like a step better than Andrew Wiley. Not that Wiley is a bad player, but I mean, you won a Super Bowl with Andrew Wiley. I think Alaric Jackson on the other side of the line is a slightly better player than Wiley.
Let me throw this out at you. Spotrac thinks Jackson's market value, 3 years, about $48 million.
Yeah, done. Do it right now.
Yeah,
yes,
I would do that without thinking too hard about
I
it.
would be tampering the hell out of him and his agent right now to get that done. That to me, like Matt Verderame always tells us, free agency kind of starts at the Senior Bowl. It really starts at the Combine. I'm getting that deal verbally agreed to at the Combine next week. Like, I would do that in a heartbeat. I'm not touching Cam Robinson. That's way too many former Jaguars linemen for me with him and Jawan Taylor. No, thank you. Ronnie Stanley is an awesome player. You can't rely on him. Tyron Smith has been an awesome player, but when he was out there this year, he wasn't all that great, and you can't rely on him health-wise either. And DJ Humphries, the Chiefs didn't want to play him this year.
Yeah, that's the thing about that, right?
And I know that, well, he wasn't with the team in the preseason. He didn't get to work with the team all year, etc. Okay, fine. He had been with the team for plenty of time by the playoffs, and they still had no desire to put him in. So, no, I would, for that deal, I would say get Alaric Jackson locked in, starting left tackle, let's go. I would be thrilled with that deal. Don't anchor yourself down for too long. Hardly an albatross financially. That's way less than Jawan Taylor is making, especially, again, considering how much the cap has already risen. Yeah, I would do that in a heartbeat. I think you're probably going to, man, I hope that's the deal. I'll say that. That'll be my bold declaration. I hope that's the deal. Okay. And if not, finding a left tackle in the draft, usually the safer way than trying to sign one in free agency. But if you can go get Jackson for 3 years, I'd lock it in right now.
And their draft capital is limited. I believe I said earlier that the Chiefs have 7 picks. That's not correct. They currently have 6. I forgot the one they traded to the Jets for McCole Hardman in the 6th round. So the Jets,
the gift that keeps on giving.
The Jets have the Chiefs 6th round pick. The Chiefs have round 1 pick, round 2 pick, 2 round 3 picks, a round 4 pick, and then they don't pick again until round 7. There might be a compensatory pick or 2 in there because the 5th round pick conveys to the Titans from the DeAndre Hopkins deal as well. So they're down to 6.
That is such a Madden draft. I'm trading all of my day 3 picks for an extra day 2 pick. Yeah. And I just don't want to do the second half of the draft.
Yeah, I respect that. Anyhow, it's just hard to see sitting at 31 and finding a day 1 starter at left tackle. I do not think the Chiefs can draft one at 31 overall. Could they move up maybe into the 20s and find a guy who could start for them day 1? Potentially. But I don't think they can sit at 31 and get that. What position do you think of all of the needs is most likely something the Chiefs can fill with the draft capital they have on hand?
Defensive line. Probably on the interior, but edge as well. Daniel Jeremiah of NFL Network did a conference call earlier this week when he said last year, I believe it was, he had 14 guys he considered first round, like worthy of a first round pick on defensive line. And that's not these guys were in my top 32 players, but just these guys I could squint and see as a first round pick. Said this year 24. One of the deepest defensive line drafts he's ever seen. I think it is deeper on the interior than it is on the edge, but I think right there, because those are positions you've got to lock down long term. Chris Jones. We don't know how long Chris Jones is going to be around. So if you can get a guy next to him for a couple of years who's going to be a really good number 2, who then can be your best defensive tackle maybe 3 years from now, you're feeling really good. And there should be enough depth that there is a starting caliber player, a day 1 or a mid-season starting caliber player is a rookie available there at 31.
If they could get Kenneth Grant from Michigan at 31 overall.
I am confused why Kenneth Grant keeps getting mocked like 28 and below. I would take Kenneth Grant with a top 20 pick. I'm serious. I would take him.
Him and Walter Nolan, I keep seeing in the 20s and 30s in drafts. Like, those guys are like earth movers.
Especially in a draft that has such a terrible quarterback class. And I get there's a QB tax. I understand that. Those guys should be top 20 picks. And I don't understand it. Yeah, that would be my trade-up scenario. Seriously. Like, if he's there at 24-ish, I'm jumping for that right there. I would be happy with Kenneth Grant. So that would be my no-doubter, is to get defensive line. Honestly, probably a depth pick later on, especially if you trade back, add a couple picks. I would try to get a starting caliber blue chip player early and then add a little depth in the 6th or 7th round. Again, if you move some picks around.
Which position do you think is the easiest to fill in free agency? of all of the things that the Chiefs need. Because, again, not a particularly deep free agent class.
No, it's ass, man. I mean, it's terrible. All across the board. There is no depth anywhere.
It's the Tate Martell Memorial free agent class of 2025. It's ass, my dude.
It's ass, my dude. I haven't checked corners yet. I'm going to pull that up right now. You might be able to get some decent corner depth. That's probably the one I would go with. Because even if Jalen Watson's going to be your number 2, he had a bad Super Bowl, but he's a good player.
He was having a breakout year before he got hurt.
Right,
right. And we don't know. That's something that the Chiefs are going to have to figure out when they evaluate their roster. They got to look at 2 guys in particular, Jalen Watson and Isaiah Pacheco. Mm-hmm. And they got to say, is the real version of this guy the guy we got after the injury? Because if the real version of this guy, what we're going to have in 2025, is what we got after the injury, we need to look at upgrades.
I think it is more likely that Watson bounces back than Pacheco does. I'm not trying to bag on Pacheco here.
It's positional, right? Like, he's a running back.
He's a running back already. So you're already asking the value question. And plus, as much as everybody likes to joke about his running style, he runs like he's Stone Cold Steve Austin stomping a mud hole in the rock. Like, that style does not translate for a long time. His replacement is coming this year or next year in the draft. I'm pretty certain of that. I do think Jalen Watson will bounce back. I think Jalen Watson's the best swing corner in the NFL if he ends up number 3. And if he's number 2, that's fine. He had a good year before the injury. I'm just looking right now at Spotrac and their list of the available corners. This is actually probably one of the deeper free agent groups this year. Dane Jackson was just cut by Carolina today. I don't want him starting, but if he's your 3rd corner, that's fine. You're probably not bringing back Charvarius Ward. I'm assuming he's going to get quite a payday. DJ Reed's out there. He'll probably get paid quite a bit, the K-State guy. But, again, Kendall Fuller's on the market again. Dolphins let him go so he can go find a home. I would love Kendall Fuller back with Kansas City as their 3rd cornerback. Rasul Douglas was not very good at the end of last season. But, again, as your 3rd option at corner, I'd be happy to take a flyer on Rasul Douglas again, especially in the slot. So I think that's probably your most likely option to fill via free agency. I will give you one other note on the offensive line here. And I know this has come up. I think Spencer mentioned this the other day. I wish we had more time so I could have asked Matt this. What if the right guard for the Chiefs of the future is already on this roster?
What if it's Kingsley Suamataia?
What if it's Kingsley Suamataia?
I don't think, because there was that reporting. Nate Taylor of The Athletic mentioned in a podcast after the Super Bowl that they were warming Kingsley up at left guard to come into the game and replace Mike Caliendo.
Yes.
They ended up pulling the plug. It couldn't have been worse.
But I will say this, because you look like, he drafted this guy to be our franchise left tackle, and he's only going to end up being a guard.
I would say no, you don't draft a franchise left tackle 63rd, 64th overall.
Right. And if you have to convert a guy who was taken with the last pick of the 2nd round and he becomes a starting guard for you, you know what you got? A starting guard.
Yeah.
That you're not complaining about value with the last pick of the 2nd round.
No.
That's great. You will take that. And I don't know if he can do it. I don't. But he's huge. And he's athletic.
And he plays nasty.
He does. I don't think he's very refined. I think the refinement and the technique is the biggest problem for Kingsley. That is important, but matters a little bit less if you're playing inside. And Creed Humphrey next to you is going to cover up some of those blemishes as well. I think and this is just a guess, I think he is going to get a look to be the starting right guard this offseason during training camp, mini camp, OTAs, all of that. And if that's the case, that makes things so much clearer for this team going forward. Because then, Norzad and Hansen, those guys, and Caliendo, those guys are depth now. You don't have to worry about them. Oh, God, worst case scenario, they've got to start. No, Kingsley in that big frame, he's going to start. You only then need to find one new starter on the offensive line that saves money elsewhere. If that would work out, I think that would be massive for this team and their offseason plans. So honestly, that might be up there next to Kelsey. Not as important as figuring out Kelsey, but hey, if Kingsley's a guard and we can get him for even 3 more years as a starting caliber guard, doesn't have to be elite, but just good enough, we're in a great spot right now. That's going to save a bunch of cap space, saves a roster spot essentially. That would be my hope, is that if he's not going to be tackle, and I don't think he will be, move him to guard, set, forget, you're good.
I think that's very possible. I also think if you stay again at 31 in the first round, you might not be able to find a left tackle of the future there, but you can absolutely find the right guard of the future at 31 overall. That might be a more realistic if the Chiefs are going to target.
Yes, Kansas City's true team.
Yeah, the Chiefs are going to target offensive line in the first round. I think would be more likely on the interior than at a tackle spot. I do think that there's some good edge talent. There's some good defensive tackle talent in this draft. I think third wide receiver for the Chiefs should be Hollywood Brown. I think they need to make that happen, and then put the pieces together from there at the wide receiver spot. They've always preferred to find their corners through the draft. They've prided themselves in that. Their hit rate is stupendously high. I think they're going to try that again in the middle rounds, and that they'll target a defensive back. They always seem to every year anyhow, to address that particular need.
Real quick, I just want to say, because I do think the Chiefs need another wide receiver, whether they bring Hollywood back for another year or not. The best part of this draft for wide receivers in terms of value is going to come probably round 3 and later. Like, it's Ted McMillan and Luther Burden at the top. Depending on what you think of Emeka Ibuka, either a first or second round pick. That's it for the best receivers in this class. But I like Matthew Golden from Texas a lot. If Alec Iamaner is there when the Chiefs are on the clock in the third round, I would take him. I would take him right there. So I do think middle of the draft, maybe they can find their next, depth wide receiver there.
My early third round draft pick that I want to see the Chiefs take is I want to see him get Harold Fannin from Bowling Green, the big tight end.
The tight end? His best tight end season ever.
Yeah, I've got a draft crush on Harold Fannin Jr. for sure. Anyhow, before we get to a timeout, quick word from my friends at Great Life here in Topeka. Weather's going to turn next week, which means the sun is going to melt that snow, which means sooner rather than later, we're going to be back on the courses playing golf. And Great Life has 5 outstanding golf courses that you can play. If you're a member, you get to play for free. If you're if your membership tier is high enough, you all-inclusive member, you can have a free cart. You get free range balls every day if you're an all-inclusive member. So start thinking about golf. Start thinking about Great Life. GreatLifeTopeka.com. See what being a member can do for you. We'll come back and crown a weekly champion on what is wrong with you after this on 580 Sports Talk. Time to crown a weekly champion on What Is Wrong With You, sponsored by our buddy Mo, State Farm agent Ryan Mowinkle. Go to his website, ryanmowinkle.com. That's MOHWINKLE.com. See what Mo can do for you.
Mo!
We've got our current weekly champion, the meth cannon, and the two guys are going to shoot meth and cigs. I can't even get through the telling of the story without laughing, which tells you that it's a heavy favorite. They were going to use a T-shirt cannon, one of those hydraulic T-shirt cannons, to shoot meth and cigs into a prison yard, over the wall into a prison yard, and they got caught. We got two stories today, both of them short and sweet. Brendan, why don't you give us yours first?
My story takes us to Frostproof, Florida. That's a pretty literal name. Where a Polk County woman is accused of attacking a man with a garden hoe after the two were planning to hang out earlier in the evening. Polk County Sheriff's Office said Melanie Davis, 47 years old, was unhappy that the victim canceled their plans, so she went to his home at 3 a.m. on Tuesday and yelled at him from outside. Investigators then said she climbed the fence to his property, pushed through his door, and punched him. That's when she allegedly grabbed a garden hoe and began hitting him with it, causing a serious laceration to his arm.
I bet.
He was taken to a hospital and treated. I would have canceled my plans with this woman too. Damn. She has been charged with armed burglary with battery, aggravated battery with a deadly weapon, simple battery, and criminal mischief.
Why'd that put hang out in quotes?
Because they were going to bang.
I mean, it makes it seem like that, right?
By the way, here's a fun little kicker from Fox 13 News in Florida. According to Polk County inmate records, Miss Davis, the 47-year-old woman in question here, has been arrested 28 times in the last 28 years. This was her annual arrest.
Some people like bad girls, I guess.
She just loves bread and water, I guess.
We go, for my story, to Columbus County, North Carolina. I have a saying when it comes to teams hiring interim coaches that they should not hire. I always say don't hire the substitute teacher.
Yep.
Well, in schools, don't hire a racist substitute teacher.
Uh-oh.
Columbus County Schools substitute teacher has been accused of referring to African-American students as slaves and monkeys.
Oh, my God.
According to a press release, civil rights activist John Barnett received a call from two mothers who reported their daughters were called racially charged words. I love they use racially charged, racist words. There's a racist thing to say about African-American people. It is not racially charged.
This is horrid.
It's just racist. Columbus County Schools released a statement saying they are aware of the recent allegations. At this point of our investigation, no determination has been made as to the claims presented. We will provide clarification on those issues as information becomes available. Yeah, I don't know. Like before, like I know it's hard to find a good substitute teacher. Like I get it, but I don't know. Maybe a little background check. Like I don't know. See if see what his likes are on X. You know,
sir, why'd you come to your interview with a hood on?
Yeah, what's with the
man? This is awful.
What's with the red armband? Do you have to wear that?
Okay, I can't pick this because this person is so bad. Such a terrible person.
Uh-huh.
So I'm going to go with our garden hoe.
Yeah, the hoe story.
Yeah. Careful.
Yeah, not everybody else is making the joke in the YouTube live comments, so we don't have to. Anyway, that's not beating the meth cannon.
No.
I
don't think so.
Meth cannon's got
meth cannon. A good month so far.
Yeah, it has. Meth cannon's got real potential. That's our winner on What Is Wrong With You, sponsored by our guy Mo, State Farm agent Ryan Mowinkle. Mowinkle Insurance and Financial Services can help if something is wrong or may go wrong with you. Brendan's got you the rest of the way. I'm heading out to Highland Park for some high school hoops. 5A Sports Talk continues after this.
6:38 on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski joining you from high up on Huntoon Hill. Flying solo with you the rest of the day today. Spencer has the day off. Meanwhile, Dan Lucero is on his way to the pressure cooker Ken Darting Gymnasium at Highland Park High School for tonight's 580 Preps High School Basketball Game of the Week doubleheader from the Meadowlark Conference. It's Highland Park versus Kansas City Sumner Academy. Our coverage will begin right around 5:30 today, if not a little before 5:30 here on the Sports Voice of Kansas. Dan and the coach, Larry Latimer, on the call for that action tonight. College basketball for our local programs this weekend. Washburn, I'm going to start right there because the Ichabods picked up a sweep over Central Oklahoma last night. 15-point win for the women, 21-point win for the men. Really fun night of hoops. It's senior day. Home regular season finale tomorrow. Game 1 at 1 o'clock. Game 2, the men's game at 3 o'clock. It'll be senior day for the men. The women don't have any seniors on the roster this year. The men will send off Michael Keegan, Andrew Orr, Jacob Hanna, and Jake Shodegg. I will have the call of those games over on our sister station, Country 1069, 12:45 pregame start time for that doubleheader tomorrow. KU is in action coming up tomorrow as well, taking on Oklahoma State. More on that in just a second. And we'll get to K-State versus Arizona State on Sunday a little bit later on as well. But before KU plays Oklahoma State tomorrow, Bill Self, of course, taking on his alma mater, OSU, which has at times been a difficult matchup for Kansas. This Oklahoma State team is not good. Steve Lutz, long way to go for his program. I like Lutz, by the way. I think that was a good hire by Oklahoma State, former Western Kentucky coach, had a lot of success with the Hilltoppers. I think he will eventually find plenty of success at Oklahoma State as well. But Barry Trammell earlier today, who has been a longtime columnist for the Tulsa World newspaper. Barry Trammell's been doing this since the Chicago Bears were considered a good franchise in the early 80s. He's been doing this for a long, long time. And has connections, obviously, to Oklahoma State. And I imagine has some connections to Bill Self as well. Bill Self played at Oklahoma State, like I just mentioned. He has come up every time Oklahoma State has needed a coach. Well, do you think they could poach Bill Self from Kansas? No, it's not going to happen. Barry Trammell, though, has some sources that in a story today indicated maybe it was closer than we previously thought as recently as this past spring. An excerpt from this column over at the Tulsa World starts off like this from Barry Trammell. In the final week of March 2024, Oklahoma State circled in on Steve Lutz as its new basketball coach. Mike Boynton had been fired on March 14th, and 2 weeks is an eternity in coaching searches. But for as many as 5 days, Cowboy fans sat like an expectant father in a 1960s waiting room without an announcement. Finally, on April 1st, Lutz was announced that he embarked on the business of rebuilding what was once a proud program. And now we know why there was a delay. OSU was putting a hard sell on Kansas coach Bill Self. Adds on that multiple sources said OSU took a swing at Self and Cowboy decision makers grew increasingly confident that Self was impressed with the organization of the plan his alma mater had produced and was intrigued at the package, complete with competitive salary and a budget to pay players in the new professional age of college basketball. Adds on that for a couple of days last spring, Self holed up in a lodge at Karsten Creek, which is a golf course and resort near Stillwater or in Stillwater itself, and seriously considered the offer. One insider even told Trammell, quote, by far the closest it's ever come to happening. And I'll leave the excerpt there. Again, you can go find this in the Tulsa World from Barry Trammell today. I do not dispute the reporting by Trammell that says Oklahoma State reached out to Bill Self. Because to be as blunt as I can be with you, it would be incredibly dumb, downright idiotic for Oklahoma State not to reach out to Bill Self. One of your alumni is one of the greatest college basketball coaches ever. He is the greatest college basketball coach at the school that pretty much invented college basketball coaching between James Naismith and then Phog Allen. Of course you reach out to him. And Bill Self, in his quotes today, his comments at his weekly pre-weekend media availability, media session with local reporters in Lawrence, addressed that every time Oklahoma State has had an opening since he has been at KU, he has talked to his alma mater. Generally speaking, it is about what Self thinks it takes to win at OSU, a program he obviously knows very well. He was also an assistant at Oklahoma State under Leonard Hamilton, among others. What it would take to win there. What kind of guy they should be looking for. And Self went on to say, hey, I like Steve Lutz. I think he's Steve Lutz. I think he's the right guy for the job. So, of course, they're going to reach out to him. You take that swing. I personally, and this is not a report, this is just my understanding of the situation and the little tiny bit I have heard from folks I know who are in the know. If the rest of this report is true, that Self was seriously considering an offer from Oklahoma State, it would have been the surprise of all surprises in Lawrence. I am not aware of any sort of movement from Self's side or any sort of belief from KU that this was even in the realm of possibility. And frankly, I am a little dubious of the claim that Oklahoma State was going to make a competitive salary offer to Bill Self and then would also have had other finances to make the pay to play and the house settlement and the revenue sharing and all that, to make that all work out as well. Bill Self's got an incredible deal at KU, makes an unbelievable amount of money, and KU could give him a raise today and it would not change anything. And it would be completely deserved. Yes, Bill Self, you're one of the greatest basketball coaches of all time. Yeah, we'll sprinkle a little more on there. You're good to go. No worries about that from the KU side. There's no worry for Bill Self from the KU side about the buy-in that Kansas has in basketball. This isn't like the last couple of years at the University of Kentucky where John Calipari was begging his athletic director, Mitch Barnhart, for more resources or something, which is ridiculous when you're talking about a school like Kentucky. There's no worries about that at Kansas. So it's not like that is a concern that would have pushed Bill Self out. What is the one thing that would have made Self really strongly consider it? Just the fact that it's Oklahoma State, it's his alma mater. He went there. He's from Oklahoma originally. I mean, if that's it, then I guess I can understand the appeal. If that's the only thing, and if that meant more than anything. But I think we know at this point, and Self has been pretty clear about this over the last couple of years, especially fairly recently since the health problems that led to him not being able to coach in the 2023 NCAA tournament. He's closer to the end than the beginning by a considerable amount. He even earlier this season mentioned being on the back nine. He might not be on the 18th green, but he might be on hole 13 or 14, something like that. He's getting closer to retirement. And I think we have known that for a while. He's always said, I don't want to coach until I die. I want some time to actually be able to enjoy retirement, enjoy the fruits of my labor and all of that. And more power to him. I think that's awesome. I think that's a great perspective to have on life, especially after having the heart problem 2 seasons ago. So why would you give up one of the best jobs in all of college sports, not just basketball, all of college sports, head men's basketball coach at the University of Kansas, to go rebuild and be done within what, maybe 5 years? That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And maybe Oklahoma State really did have an offer that he couldn't refuse. They made the Godfather offer, and there were more zeros than you could believe on the contract offer to him. I don't really believe that, personally. I'm not trying to question the bona fides of Barry Trammell. I'm sure he trusts his sources. I'm sure they have given him plenty of great information over the course of time. I just have a hard time believing this. Now, Bill Self was, of course, asked about this by Gary Bedore of the Kansas City Star during his media availability earlier today. And he said that, yes, I did speak to Oklahoma State, as we've covered. He even went as far as to say, my administration, so Travis Goff on down in the athletic department at KU, knew that I talked to Oklahoma State. And that was it. I had a conversation, told them I like Steve Lutz. I told them what I think they need to do to be able to win in the Big 12, just not at the expense of Kansas. That's what he said. And the part about Karsten Creek Golf Course, well, he was holed up there, said he hasn't spent a night in Stillwater without being there for a game 20 years. I have no reason to doubt that at any point. And he said, well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it happened once in there. I went back for a reunion or something. I have no reason to doubt anything Self says in that situation. Now, he would not specify, did they make an offer to you? He said, I'm not going to bring that up publicly, but I will tell you it did not go beyond just sharing my opinions of what that program ends up needing. And as for the golf course, yeah, I'm a member. I'm a non-resident member. It's one of the best golf courses in America. That's what he said. I don't think this is necessarily a nothing because Oklahoma State did the right thing to reach out to one of its most famous alumni. But I don't believe this was ever a serious consideration for Self, even with the disappointment of the last 2 years since the national championship. And even now, after how much of a slog the back half of the Big 12 schedule has been this year, I don't think Bill Self is ever going to leave KU, and I don't frankly think Bill Self is ever going to strongly consider it. That's just my opinion. I have not heard from the man himself, but my understanding of the situation, my understanding of KU's perspective, there was never anything close to this happening. So again, Barrett Trammell, interesting piece. I don't doubt that Oklahoma State reached out, but I am a little bit dubious of the idea that Bill Self was waiting in a lodge hotel room, really seriously considering heading to Oklahoma State. Again, if for no other reason, he's handsomely compensated right now, and he's probably retiring within the next 5 years. And that doesn't seem like the time to go and try to rebuild a program, even if it is one that is somewhat near and dear to his heart. KU does take on Oklahoma State this weekend. The Cowboys aren't good. I mean, let's just be as blunt as we can be about this. It's just not a good program right now. Mike Boynton, I really liked. I liked him as a guy. I liked him as a leader. I don't think he is a very good basketball coach, at least certainly not in a head coaching capacity. He left Oklahoma State pretty barren. The NCAA sanctions several years back didn't do them any favors. So Lutz has a long way to go to build that team up. I will always have a lot of love for Bryce Thompson, who, as we remember, when KU was right in the thick of the FBI investigation, he was a 5-star prospect. His dad had played for Bill Self at Tulsa. He committed to KU. There was some great social media content about it at the time. Transferred out after 1 year, didn't end up being a great fit, but I've got nothing but respect for Bryce Thompson because what he did was a big deal for KU at the time. That being said, the rest of that roster, not very good. They currently rank 101st in the KenPom. Colorado, for comparison's sake, who is, as we know, abominable, they're 96th. And Oklahoma State slots in worse than Colorado, according to Ken Pomeroy. I know that every KU game has been pretty miserable to watch, including the win over Colorado several games back. Certainly this past weekend and the road swing through Utah, taking on the Utes and then BYU. Obviously, those games were no fun if you're KU. I do think the Jayhawks back at home, what should be a pretty decent crowd. Weather is improving a little bit, so some folks are going to be willing to actually leave their houses and apartments for the first time in a week. I think it's going to be a good crowd at Allen Fieldhouse, and in that building, I have a really hard time seeing a team as poor as Oklahoma State going in there and beating KU. Stranger things have happened, but barely. So I think KU is going to get it done. 75-66. That's what I'll give you for the final score in this one. KU, even with a bunch of guys who don't click and don't have very good chemistry, still has way too much talent, I think, for the Pokes. K-State is going to be in action coming up on Sunday. Wildcats versus Sun Devils from Bramlage Coliseum. 3 o'clock start time for that one. Pregame begins at 2 o'clock. You can, of course, listen to that game and every Kansas State Wildcats men's basketball game right here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW. The bright side for Kansas State, the positive spin zone on this, is that technically the goal we set for the Wildcats on this program, both myself and Dan, along with Spencer, along with our K-State insider Tim Fitzgerald in the Wildcat wrap-up as well last week, setting K-State's final 7 games for them to make it into the NCAA tournament off the bubble, it would take 5 wins. They've got 5 games left, 5 opportunities for wins. That's the good thing for Kansas State. Here's the bad thing. One of the most winnable games was Utah, and K-State lost. I'm not surprised K-State lost to BYU when they played the reverse Utah swing of what KU did this past weekend. Not surprised they lost to BYU. I thought BYU and Iowa State would be losses. Iowa State coming up in the final game of the regular season. But 5 in the middle against teams in the bottom half of the Big 12, including Arizona State, who is not well coached at all. Colorado, which is a complete and utter mess right now. There would be plenty of opportunities to get those 5 wins. But dropping a game to a bad Utah team, which is playing with confidence but still isn't actually any good, That really stunts things for Kansas State. Can K-State win the next 5 games? Yes, without question. Are they going to, especially with Iowa State looming at the end, and Iowa State is going to be playing for seeding in the NCAA tournament at the very end of the regular season? That feels a little bit more precarious. I do like K-State at home on Sunday against Arizona State. Again, I don't think Bobby Hurley is a good coach whatsoever. They've got plenty of talent. I don't think that talent is well managed by the Sun Devils. Unfortunately for Kansas State, that still leaves them with no margin for error the rest of the way if they want to make it in off the bubble into the tournament. And if they do lose this game to ASU, it's over. We can stop the bubble conversation. It has fully popped, and we're moving on to next year in full. Again, that K-State game coming up Sunday at 3 o'clock right here on 580 WIBW. We owe you one more time out here in this 4 o'clock hour. We'll come on back with this week's edition of Second Thought, as I offer a mea culpa for a bad take earlier in the week. We'll get to more K-State basketball, in fact, in that regard. It's coming up next here on 580 Sports Talk. On second thought time, offering up an apology or at least an acknowledgement of a bad take from the past week. And I'm going to follow up on exactly what I said at the end of last segment. I was convinced not only could K-State get in the NCAA tournament by winning 5 of their final 7 games, I said they would win 5 of those 7 and that Utah would be one of them. And then K-State went to Salt Lake City, and it did not end well. Not a well-played game. I don't think Utah was impressive by any means, but K-State was less impressive. As Tim Fitzgerald put it last Wednesday here on 580 Sports Talk, Coleman Hawkins was out there doing weird stuff, and really nobody else played well except Doug McDaniel for the Cats. Yeah, that's kind of what unfolded, and now there's absolutely no margin for error. And with Iowa State looming at the end of the schedule, I don't feel so great about that prediction at this point for Kansas State basketball. We've got to get to one final news break here on 580 Sports Talk today. We'll come back, wrap things up with today's 580 Sports Talk headlines, and get you off to high school basketball with Dan Lucero. It's coming up after the news here on 580 WIBW. Hey now, final hour of 580 Sports Talk coming your way. And by final hour, I really just mean final couple of moments. I'm Brendan Dworzinski with you high up on Huntoon Hill. Our 580 Preps High School Basketball Game of the Week doubleheader is coming up in just about 15 minutes. JV got done extra early tonight, so Highland Park and Kansas City Sumner are just about ready to go. So without further ado, let's wrap up today's edition of 580 Sports Talk with a quick final word. The final word for me today, I'm going to go back to the Kansas City Royals and say that, yes, maybe they should have done a little bit more this offseason with a golden opportunity in front of them. And I do still agree with Dan. They're a bat short of truly being contenders. But that being said, the rest of this division outside the Tigers, a disgrace of an offseason. The Tigers, they added some pieces. They didn't lose a whole lot. They should be playoff contenders again. The Guardians, embarrassing. They should be one of the top contenders in the American League, and they just refuse to be. The Twins, same thing. The White Sox, LOL. The Royals have a golden opportunity here. Even if it wasn't a perfect offseason, it was a good one. I think this team got better, and that should make you very excited with Royals baseball on the horizon, with already one spring training game in the books today. A win even over the Rangers. That's it for me this week. That's it for 580 Sports Talk this week. Check out the podcast on Spotify. Check out the YouTube channel as well, 580 Sports Talk. We'll get to a quick break. We'll come on back, send you over to the pressure cooker at Highland Park High School. Dan Lucero and Larry Latimer are there for Highland Park versus Kansas City Sumner Academy. Until next time, this is Brendan Dworzinski saying so long from our 580 studios, and thank you for listening to this week's editions of 580 Sports Talk here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW.